Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be reviewing a book called The Magical Girl's Guide to Life by Jacque Aye. I looked around a lot for a pronunciation guide for this last name and I couldn't find one, so if I am pronouncing it incorrectly, let me know. So, summary. The tagline for this book is, "Find your inner power, fight everyday evil, and save the day with self-care." And all of this book's chapters break down into individual steps of the process of creating a magical girl persona, and each subject is named in these chapters. First, you discover your magical girl power, your magical girl origins, and then you decide on your magical girl name. Later chapters cover finding your familiar and finding your own magical girl squad. Each chapter follows the same general format, where the subject at hand is identified by concept, and then reinforced by examples from media the reader is likely familiar with, given the subject matter and title of this book. Then the author details a portion of her life story and how it relates to this chapter. There are also short quizzes that remind me a lot of the quizzes from Girls Life magazine, or those live journal days when we were finding out what Muppet we were. The ultimate goal of this book is to help the reader face their own real-life problems. Examples include the Duke of Despair and social anxiety personified into a Monster of the Week template. Here's the evaluation. At its core, I would describe this book as a literal half-step away from a legitimate introduction to witchcraft via a magical girl paradigm. What feels kind of weird about this is that the book doesn't recognize, or at least outright say, what this is, and I'm not sure if that was because the author was trying to avoid an association with witchcraft, or because she doesn't recognize that this is a type of witchcraft. As far as strengths go, this book has a lot of them. The material is well organized, and it takes the reader through the process in kind of like a combination book workbook. Each chapter has concrete examples from both established series and the author's own life. Each topic is explained well, and I really felt like the author's voice came straight to me in one of those post-Sailor Moon episode PSAs, and it was very nostalgic and friendly. At the same time, I've got a couple issues with this book. First, it doesn't actually inform the reader how to face their monsters when they've gone through this book. You basically define your monsters and make up a list of ways to combat them, but I don't know, this wasn't quite it for me. I can't make any statements regarding the author's intent, but I feel like my early teen self would have gotten this book as soon as I saw the cover, and that I would have gotten to the end and felt kind of at a loss and disappointed by it. The first 6 chapters out of 10 take the reader through the magical girl persona creation process, but the author does not continue with that thread or the magical, like the purpose behind making the magical girl persona to its natural conclusion. I feel kind of strange having gone through this book and gone through the process, and then getting to these latter chapters, and then I get advice about communicating with potential love interests. And it feels like the solution presented in this book is a cognitive behavioral mapping process, and then it leaves me hanging. If mapping out my fears and feelings was the answer, and then breaking it into steps, what was the point of the magical girl stuff? Which is basically the first 60% of the book. And I can only guess what kind of should have been in this empty spot. The section that the author missed was the step of invoking your magical girl persona. It's kind of like the part where you close your eyes and imagine your magical transformation object pulsing secretly with power in your backpack, and that helps give you a little extra bravery to confront whatever frightening situation you're in. And it doesn't actually pulse with light, but the important thing is that just because this image is in your mind doesn't mean it can't help you. And this is kind of the last half step that was missing. And unless the reader is already familiar with geekomancy or pop culture paganism and paradigms, I'm not sure that they're going to make up or figure out what that last step is by themselves. And I was kind of left with the distinct feeling that there's a chapter missing from this book. Second, the front cover and the back cover summary make it sound like magical girl-themed self-care is the larger subject of this book, and the back asks the reader to get ready to reframe the way you approach challenges in your life and embark on your self-care journey anime style, which implies that this is a self-care journey, not a persona-based reframe of problems. That could easily be a publisher-caused problem, but the self-care only occupies one chapter out of 10, and I'm not sure why the self-care got such a prominent spot. That's probably just me splitting hairs, but I don't like that. Third, I have a particular issue with the familiar section. The author doesn't really go into the various ways readers could acquire familiars, and the author's own story includes her getting an actual, factual dog, and it's not clear if she's implying the reader needs to go to the Humane Society or a dog breeder to purchase a pet, and what about the people who are sorted into the mythological creatures category? Is a plush okay? It's not covered. I'm not sure why she left this part empty as well. She ends this section saying that she can only take the reader so far, and the familiar is going to take them further, but it does not say how. And I am once again left feeling like an entire chapter or half of a chapter is missing. Also, this is not much about the book, but I kind of see this as a huge oversight on the author's part. This book has set the scene perfectly for an online magical girl community for readers of this book, and I don't know why the author did not follow through with this or some other kind of social media gathering place. She dedicated an entire chapter to finding friends as an adult, but missed this very obvious opportunity to create a place for readers of this book who would want to socialize with other readers of this book. Recommendation. Overall, I think this would be a nice gift for people who like magical girls. I am not really sure what the target audience for this book is. Part of me wants to say adults, and part of me wants to say preteens, and I'm just not quite certain of what it is. In an ideal scenario, I would say this would be for people who want to get into a magical girl paradigm type of witchcraft, but it's missing just enough that I cannot call this a must-have. For final grade, I'm giving this an 80%. It's accessible, easy to understand, and makes most of the process easy, but it's missing crucial background information to make this a good book for a witch or a geekomancer. Or rather, it's missing the final follow-through on why the magical girl framing was necessary in the first place for tackling real-life problems, and if you don't need to fuck around and find out the answer to those questions, you probably don't need this book on your shelf. In other words, this book is the equivalent to a pre-made adventuring module for Pathfinder or Dungeons & Dragons for up to 5 adventurers that are levels 1 through 3, and it's lacking just enough information to mean you have to either ask someone for help or buy the core rulebook too.